In this session, we will learn about the form tags. Form tags in HTML are used to create forms that allow users to input data, which can then be sent to a server for processing. It serves as a container for various input elements like text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, and submit buttons, which allow users to enter information. The form tag typically includes attributes such as action, for specifying where to send the data, and method for defining the HTTP method for submission, like GET or POST. In the Developer Tools, when you open the Network tab, submit the form, and observe the request details, you can see that the request method is the GET method as specified in the code. We will learn and understand all these attributes in this session. The list of form tags includes these tags. The primary and most significant component in HTML is the form tag. The form tag in HTML is used to create a form for user input. The form tag is a container used to collect user inputs and submit them to a server. It's essential for creating interactive elements, such as login forms, surveys, and other input-based applications. Here we can see how the form tag is displayed in the code. All the components in the form should be written inside the form tag. The key attributes of form tag are action and method attribute. The action attribute specifies where the form data should be sent. It specifies the URL that points to a server-side script or a file that processes the submitted data. When you set the action attribute in a form like this, it means the form will send data to the URL when you submit it. The method attribute defines how the form data will be sent. The two main methods are get method and post method. When we set the method attribute to get, like this, it sends data in the URL, making it visible and best for non-sensitive data. Similarly, we can also set the method attribute to post like this, because it sends data in the request body, hiding it from the URL, making it suitable for sensitive information. The static server does not support handling form submissions with the post method, so the output is not displayed in the browser. We will learn how to handle form submissions with a server in future sessions. Here, the target attribute defines where to display the form response, with these possible values. If the value in the target attribute is set to self, then it loads the response in the same frame by default, and if it is set to blank, it opens the response in a new tab or window like this. Similarly, if the value of target attribute is set to parent, it loads the response in the parent frame, and if the value is set to top, it opens in the top level frame. The ENC type attribute specifies the encoding type for form data. It is important when dealing with file uploads for the value given here like this. These are also the possible values for the ENC type attribute, and it is mostly used for text data encoding type. These are all the necessary attributes we require while using form tag. Now let's see all the components we will use inside the form tag. The next ones are the label and input tags. The label and input tags in HTML are essential components for creating forms that allow users to interact with and submit data. These tags work together to create user-friendly accessible forms that are easy to navigate and understand. The label tag is used to provide a textual description for form controls, such as input, textarea, and select. Labels help users understand the purpose of each form field, making forms more accessible and easier to use. The for attribute associates the label with a specific form control by matching the for value to the ID of the target form control. When the label is clicked, the associated form control is focused, making it easier for users to interact with the form. If the form control is directly placed inside the label tag like this, there is no need to use the for attribute. This creates an implicit association between the label and the control. Label tags can be styled using CSS to improve form aesthetics. Common styles include font color, size, and spacing like this. The input tag represents a variety of user input fields, such as text fields, checkboxes, radio buttons, etc. It's a versatile tag, and its functionality changes depending on the type attribute. In this example, a label with for attribute is linked to the input ID. The type attribute specifies the type of input field, which determines how the input is presented to the user. Some common values of type attribute includes text, password, URL, checkbox, radio, submit, email, tell, number, and date. Each value of type attribute has its different purposes. The password value hides the entered text in the input field. The text value in the type attribute of input tag creates a simple box where users can type in one line of text, like their name, a username, or any short information. The email value for the type attribute accepts only email addresses in a valid format. If the input does not match the correct format, the browser will show a validation message. The submit input type triggers form submission and sends data to the specified URL as shown here. Similarly, the number value is used to create a box where users can only enter numbers, like their age, quantity, or any numeric value. On many devices, a numeric keypad will appear, making it easier to type in numbers. You can even set limits, like minimum and maximum values, so users can only enter numbers within a specific range. If the user enters a number beyond the specified limits, the browser will show this validation message. This attribute is used to create a box where users can type a website address. This is especially useful if you want to collect links from users, like their personal website or social media profile. The value in this input field might need to start with HTTP or HTTPS. If the user doesn't type a valid URL format, the browser may display a warning, helping to ensure that the input is correct. And this attribute is used to create a box where users can type in their phone number. It's helpful when you want to collect a phone number from users, like in a contact form. But it does not automatically enforce any specific phone number format. Also, when you click on Submit button, this input type does not validate the format of the phone number, and the form is submitted. However, on mobile devices, this type will often bring up a numeric keypad to make it easier to enter a phone number. The date value for the type attribute creates a box where users can select a date, like their birthday or an event date. This input type is very user-friendly because it often comes with a date picker that lets users select a date without typing in it. This attribute lets users choose one option from a list of predefined choices, and the label for each radio input is given here. Radio buttons are often used in forms when there are several options, but only one can be selected at a time, like choosing a gender, answering a yes-no question, or selecting a specific category like this. Similarly, the checkbox value lets users select one or more options from a list. Checkboxes are helpful when you want users to be able to choose multiple options, like selecting hobbies, interests, or items in a list. This part labels the input, so the form knows these options all belong to a single category. The value attributes define each option's specific choice. When users see these inputs on a page, each option will have a small square box next to it. Users can select as many boxes as they like, so they can choose multiple options at once. Here, the button value creates a simple button that you can click. Unlike a submit button, this button doesn't automatically send form data anywhere. Instead, it's typically used with JavaScript to perform custom actions, like showing a message or changing something on the page when the button is clicked. This value part sets the text that appears on the button. The file value in type attribute is used to create a box where users can upload a file from their device, like a photo, document, or video. This type of input is commonly used in forms where users need to submit files, such as uploading a resume or a profile picture. This attribute is used to store data that users cannot see or interact with. We can see that this input field is not visible on the browser screen. It allows web developers to send information along with a form submission without showing it on the page. The hidden input is invisible to the user but can be accessed by the server or JavaScript. Also, the color value for type attribute creates a color picker, allowing users to select a color. This is useful when you want users to choose a color, like for customizing the appearance of a website or selecting a background color. This attribute creates a slider that allows users to select a value from a range of numbers by sliding a knob left or right. This is useful for situations where you want users to choose a value within a specific range, like setting volume, brightness, or rating something. The search value for type attribute creates a search box, where users can type in search terms or keywords. It's specifically designed for search functionality, and we can add special features to it, such as giving the placeholder attribute, which is displayed inside this specified input field. Here, the time value creates a box where users can enter a time, such as a specific hour and minute. This is commonly used when you want users to select a time for something like scheduling an event or setting an alarm. On some devices, a clock-style time picker will appear, while on others, users can type the time directly. The name attribute assigns a name to the input field, which acts as a key when submitting form data. The ID attribute provides a unique identifier for the input field, used with the label tags for attribute to link the label to the input. The placeholder attribute provides a hint to users about what to enter in the field. The text disappears when users start typing. Also, the required attribute specifies that the input field must be filled out before submitting the form. If you click on Submit without entering any valid value, this browser validation message will appear on the screen. The read-only attribute makes the field uneditable, while the disabled attribute makes it uneditable and excludes it from form submission. Thus, we have learned all the attributes regarding label and input tags. Now let's see what textarea tag is used for. The textarea tag in HTML is used to create a multi-line text input field, allowing users to enter longer blocks of text. It's commonly found in forms where users might need to provide more detailed input, such as comments, feedback, or messages. Unlike input tag, which is a self-closing tag, textarea requires both opening and closing tags. Any default text placed between these tags appears as the initial content in the text area. This example displays how textarea creates a box where users can enter multiple lines of text. The ID attribute provides a unique identifier to the textarea tag, which is often used with label tags to improve accessibility. When a label with a for attribute matches the ID of the text area, clicking the label will focus the text area. The name attribute assigns a name to the text area, which acts as the key when submitting form data. It is essential for identifying the data on the server side. Here, the rows attribute defines how tall the text area will be in terms of the number of lines, and the calls attribute specifies the width of the text area in terms of the number of characters. The max length attribute limits the maximum number of characters that users can enter in the text area. Exceeding this limit prevents more text from being typed. The wrap attribute controls how text wraps in the text area. It can have values like soft, which wraps the text visually but submits as a single line without line breaks. The hard value wraps the text visually and includes line breaks in the submitted text. Also, the autofocus attribute automatically focuses the text area when the page loads. Only one input or text area can have autofocus within a form. The content typed here by the user will be submitted as part of the form. This is how textarea tag is used in a form. Now let's move to the button tag. The button tag is used to create clickable buttons within a form or on a web page. Buttons can trigger actions, like submitting a form or running scripts. The button tag is more flexible to use than the input tag, because you can include other elements like icons or formatting inside the button. Button can be of different types such as submit, reset, and button. To specify which type of button we want, the type attribute is used. This type attribute creates a regular button that does not submit a form by default. It can be used for custom actions, like running JavaScript functions when clicked. The submit type attribute creates a button that submits the form data to the server, specified in the action attribute of the form tag. Whereas the reset type attribute creates a button that clears all form fields, resetting them to their initial values. If this attribute is added to the button becomes unclickable, and it won't trigger any actions. It's useful for preventing users from interacting with the button in certain conditions. The class attribute assigns one or more class names to the button, which can be targeted with CSS to style the button like this. Also, the form attribute allows the button to be associated with a form that is not its immediate parent. This is useful when you want a button in one part of the page to submit a form located elsewhere. On the other hand, this attribute specifies the URL to send the form data when the button is clicked. It is used when you want to override the form's default action attribute for a specific button. The form method attribute defines the HTTP method to use when submitting the form data like this. This can be used to override the form's default method. The form target attribute specifies where to display the response after submitting the form. The value can be self, blank, parent, or top, and these values are similar to how the target attribute works for links. This attribute prevents the form from being validated when the button is clicked. This is useful if you want to skip form validation for a specific button. And the access key attribute specifies a keyboard shortcut to activate the button, allowing users to click the button using a combination of the keyboard. These are all the necessary attributes we can use for the button tag. The next ones are select, opt group and option tag. The select, opt group, and option tags are often used together to create a well-structured drop-down list in HTML. The select tag is used to create a drop-down list. It wraps around option and opt group elements and provides the interface where users can choose one or multiple options. It usually includes the name attribute, which gives the drop-down an identifier when the form is submitted. The ID attribute also provides a unique identifier for the select element, useful for referencing in JavaScript or CSS. The multiple attribute allows users to select multiple options, and the size attribute defines how many options are visible at once without scrolling. If size is more than 1, the list becomes a multi-line selection box. The opt group tag is used inside a select element to group related option elements. This is helpful for organizing options into categories, making it easier for users to navigate a large list. For the opt group tag, the label attribute specifies the label or title for the group of options. This label is displayed above the options in the group. The option tag defines each option within a select dropdown. It includes a value attribute that defines what data will be submitted when the user selects that option. The selected attribute specifies that an option should be pre-selected when the page loads like this, and the hidden attribute hides the option from the list but does not remove it from the HTML as shown here. In this example, the select element contains the drop-down list, while opt group is used to group related options within that list. The option elements inside opt group represent individual items within each group. The drop-down list contains groups of options, that is one for citrus fruits and one for berries. Each group is labeled using the label attribute of the opt group tag. Inside each opt group, individual options are defined with the option tag. Also, the lemon option is disabled, so users cannot select it, and the strawberry option is pre-selected when the page loads, because it has the selected attribute. This is how we use select, opt group and option tags in a drop-down list. Now let us see what field set and legend tags are used for. The field set tag is used to create a box around a set of form elements, visually separating them from other elements on the page. This is particularly useful for organizing complex forms into logical sections. This attribute disables all form elements inside the field set. When this attribute is set, users are not able to interact with any form controls inside the field set tag. The legend tag is placed inside the field set and provides a caption or title for the grouped form elements. It describes the content or purpose of the group, making the form easier to understand. This combination improves accessibility and user experience by organizing form sections clearly. In this example, the legend tag is placed inside the field set tag. The first field set groups the contact information fields, that is name and email. The legend tag provides a clear title for this section, which is contact information. The second field set contains the account details fields, that is username and password, with its own legend for clarity. This structure makes it easy for users to understand which fields are related, improving the overall usability of the form. Thus, the field set and legend tag are used to improve form organization, accessibility, and user experience by visually grouping and labeling related fields. The next one is the data list tag. The data list tag provides a list of predefined options for an input element. It is used in conjunction with the list attribute of the input tag to display suggestions as the user types, helping them to select a value quickly. The data list provides a list of options, but unlike the select element, it allows users to type in their own values as well. The data list itself is not displayed on the page. It only works as a reference for the input element to show suggestions. In this example, we can see that the input field offers suggestions for fruit names from the data list, and the user can select an option or type their own fruit name. Now we move to the output tag. The output tag is used to represent the result of a calculation or user action. It is commonly used in forms or scripts to display the result of a computation, such as adding two numbers together or calculating a total. Here, the name attribute identifies the output element. This is especially useful when the output is part of a form and you want the result to be submitted with the form data. The for attribute specifies which input elements the output is related to. It takes one or more space-separated IDs of form controls that contribute to the output result. For example, in a simple calculator, the output may depend on the values of two input fields. In this example, when the user changes the values in the input fields, the output field automatically updates to show the sum of those values. The value inside the output tag can be updated dynamically, often via JavaScript, based on user input or calculations. The output element can be part of a form and its result can be submitted when the form is submitted, if it has a name attribute. The onInput event triggers the JavaScript code to update the result dynamically. Thus, we have covered all the important aspects related to the form tags. In the next video, we will cover semantic tags in HTML.